Welcome to Byte-Sized Agency Briefs, a webinar series that packs a ton of important agency information on one topic from one expert into a 25-minute brief. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Thanks for tuning in. This is Byte-Sized Agency Briefs, and I'm your host, Steve Guberman. I run Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the agency of their dreams. And today I'm fortunate enough to be speaking with Leslie Camacho from EOS Worldwide. He is an EOS implementer. Thanks for joining me today.
Steve, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. So first off, EOS, what? And I know there's an audiobook, but what the heck is EOS? And how did you
Yeah.
and how did you get into it? And what's your story leading up to EOS for you?
Yeah, so EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman that he wrote, I think, 16 years ago at this point, but was using 3 or 4 years prior to that. And the big promise of EOS is we'll give you vision, meaning everyone on the same page with where you're going, how you get there. Traction, meaning no matter where you go in your company, you have a high degree of confidence that everyone is working on the right things with as much autonomy as possible. And health. So no matter what your team health starting EOS is, sometimes it's really bad, sometimes it's really good. Your team health's going to go up based on the premise that all things being equal, healthy teams win consistently. So that's EOS in a nutshell. There's a model, 60 components. I won't deep dive into that. I got started in EOS because I burned myself out multiple times. So I used to be the CEO of a company. I didn't own the company. I was running on someone else's behalf. And it was essentially my dream job. I was treated super fair, great team of people around me. And I remember coming home one day to my wife, Laura, and just saying, I think I'm ready to not be the CEO. And she immediately, without hesitation, just says, please quit.
Wow.
And that was eye-opening moment that things were not how I thought they were. And I think my body and mind were, subconscious at least, were telling me that. And so that led to a series of really critical conversations about what do we actually want out of life? I'm in my dream job and I'm not happy and I don't know where I'm going and I'm burned out. And so I eventually did quit. I helped the incoming CEO take over, and then I went, I did essentially again, because I ended up working for one of my competitors on their leadership team, burned out again, but that time it only took me 4.5 years to burn out instead of 11. And on that one, I was working for, I guess it's not a secret, I was working for Kraft CMS, and Brandon Kelly's the owner and a really good friend of mine, and he fired me. And that was like I'm not happy here, am I? It's like, nope.
So let me ask, did he fire you because he saw as a friend you're just killing yourself, you're burning out, your family's suffering, etc.? Or okay.
Yes, and because of that, I was no longer fitting with the team. It was 4 really good years and 6 months where he could just tell. And I was doing my best to make it work, and he was too, and it was not a good fit anymore. And that was an important lesson to me. And I'm really thankful he let me go, because I probably would have stayed on too long and gotten even to a worse spot. And he had the wisdom to push me out the door. And
that's good leadership.
We're friends
right there.
to this day because of that. Yeah, it was excellent leadership on his part.
Yeah.
And it's a story I tell now because we need that wisdom. Very much so, to be able to do that.
So how did you stumble into, were either the shops running on EOS? How did you stumble into EOS and fall in love with it?
In my time at Kraft, I read Traction and I started using different parts of it just for myself and my own work that I was doing, but we didn't use it as a company. afterwards, I think we're both part of a community of agencies called the Bureau of Digital. So I was at a Bureau of Digital event, and another friend of mine, Todd, who is one of the co-founders of Four Kitchens, a Drupal shop out of Austin, though I think they do a lot more than that now. I was just like telling him, here's what I'm doing, consulting and the kind of roles I'm looking for. And Todd just said, hey, you're an integrator, right? And no one had ever told me that. And I had read Traction, and so it went on my mind. And so I really liked Traction and saw the value of it. And I wish I had used it when I was a CEO. But it was when I read Rocket Fuel that I cried.
Okay.
Literally tears on the page, physical crying, not a metaphor. And I remember specifically it was chapter 5 in Rocket Fuel that describes the relationship you can have with the visionary or owner of your company, and outlines like these 5 guidelines and how it works, and how you make decisions together and how you build a team around me. And it was just like this light bulb, my mind was blown moment that I was so overcomplicating it. I had read all these other books, and it really described the kind of relationship I knew I wanted. And then the journey to becoming an implementer, I trained myself as an integrator first. And so I did fractional COO work. I trained at Rocket Fuel University, which is the official integrator stuff. And then afterward, another good friend of mine says, hey, our implementer's leaving. And if you actually become an implementer like you keep talking about, we'll hire you.
So
because
an implementer
you're a better
is somebody
coach than
that
a consultant.
So an implementer is somebody that a company hires to kind of install EOS, if you will, right? And set a company up with EOS as their operating system of how we run meetings, how we choose the right people, how we align our visions, things like that, right?
Yep. Yeah, we basically take the EOS model, everything in Traction, and over the course of about 1.5 years, we help you fully implement it. Our goal is to graduate you. And it takes about 1.5 years to get it throughout the entire organization, but you see an immediate impact in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
And so, an implementer is someone that's outside your organization that comes in and helps train your entire leadership team on how to do that. And that's the part where I absolutely love it. I'm a bad one-on-one coach. I love being a team coach. That was my discovery with being an EOS implementer.
That's interesting. So I was introduced to EOS at my last job, which also was a horribly toxic place that burned me out and killed my spirit in just, 8 short months. But they ran on EOS very poorly. They kind of picked and chose what portions they wanted. The CEO, in his almighty knowledge of ego, after it was implemented, decided what they were going to use and not use, but he pushed Traction on everybody, and I'm so grateful for that takeaway from that job, because to me, Traction is a game changer, personally and professionally, and the way that you can just kind of integrate so much of that into your life, whether you're running a business or not, is just super valuable. I re-listen to it or reread it every year or two now. And I'm always jumping into the what the heck is EOS also on Audible, just because to me, it's good refresher stuff. But from your standpoint, when you're working with businesses, do you find, so you see the difference 30 days in, what are some of those like quick hit differences that businesses, specifically agencies, might start to see?
So the biggest, usually, I'm trying to think, so far with the clients I've personally worked with, there hasn't been any exceptions to this, though I've heard other stories from other implementers. What clients typically see in the first 30 days is better decision making, just out of the gate. They are more focused, more on the same page. And one of the things, like my number one tip to people that self-implement, because you don't have to hire someone like me. You can buy copies of Traction, do it yourself. There's literally thousands of teams that do it that way. One of the things that we do as in professional implementation is we don't pick and choose tools. We do all of it. And so it's a full-on commitment. And so the number one mistake do-it-yourself people make is they will see the word tools and think that I can pick and choose what tools they are, but the key word is system. So the system is made up of tools. And so what happens when you're using all of it is that you begin to see how the tools interconnect, and it's that connecting pieces between the tools that really empower your decision making and your leadership, and put in the safety nets and really force challenging conversations on a regular basis based on observable data that gets put in front of people. And that's what really kicks in, is that, oh, we can solve things together effectively. We can prioritize, we can predict. And so in professional implementation, we focus on the ground tools first, like get traction first, do vision second. And typically, especially when it's the visionary or the CEO owner pushing EOS internally, they self-implement. What they want to do is do all the fun vision stuff first. They'll like, there's a tool called the Vision Traction Organizer that has 8 key questions for the business that we answer. We do that last. Not at the end of 2 years, but in kind of the initial, we tackle that like on day 30 and on day 60, not day 1. On day 1, it's 100% team health, foundational tools. We get L10 in place. We set rocks, and we have I think what really shocks people, even though I tell them up front, is when we're working with people, is that the very first thing we do is we have the hardest conversation, because we do a self-evaluation of the leadership team. In real time, no holds barred. As much as I can, I facilitate that compassionately. But if your team's never had an honest, open, vulnerable, healthy conflict conversation before, I make sure that happens on day 1. Because it doesn't matter how good your vision is, you have to have the right people, right seats, committed, and prepared, and have the tools to live out the values of the organization. And so I think that's the biggest difference between self-implementing and having someone like me come in. EOS as a tool set is really simple. That's its value. You can't hide, but you can avoid. And so if you focus on the vision, but you don't have the challenging conversations, then you really get stuck for quite a while, and you have a bad EOS experience. Or it's not always bad. I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of like partial implementations that are really effective for what they need, but usually those teams are healthy to begin with. So the less healthy your team is, the more professionals like myself can help. The healthy teams I love working with too. Obviously, we can do big impact for them, but that's the big thing. Do the hard traction stuff first, do the vision stuff second. That's where you see that lift in that 30 days.
That's interesting. Like, I was not involved in the implementation at my previous job. It was there when I got there, and during our new employee orientation onboarding, there was a big push. Like, they introduced us to the VTO, the Vision Traction, organizers, they introduced us to Traction. We were given a copy of Traction. We were told, you got to read this in the first 30 days. And so it was very much ingrained in the DNA of the business. And I was excited about it. But then when I saw like how they really did pick and choose, like I said, the tools of the system and not the entire system, there was some, in hindsight, now, hearing you explain it after having read it a few times, there was definitely some missing links. You mentioned L10, you mentioned rocks. Can you translate those? What is, like, to people that don't understand?
Oh, yes. So, yes. So L10 stands for, and thanks for calling it out, because I'm far enough in this that it's common language to me, and it's a good reminder to back out and translate into plain speak. So a level 10 is the weekly meeting we want leadership and department level people to have, and it just stands for level 10 meeting. There's a specific format and agenda that we teach, and we want teams to use as often as possible. And then rocks are based on Stephen Covey's do the most important things first. So rocks is just EOS's way of saying, what are your priorities for the next 90 days? Are they clear? Are they smart? And you're going to commit to doing those priorities before anything else, because we've determined these are the things that are actually going to move the needle for the organization, and you're going to be accountable for making sure that those things get done. And then the level 10 meeting, the weekly meeting, is you set your priorities. So, Steve, here's the 2 things I'm committing to finishing in the next 90 days. We're on the same leadership team. Every single week, I'm telling you, Steve, this rock is this priority, this thing I committed to, it's either on track or it's off track. And if it's off track, it goes on an issues list that the team then discusses in that meeting. If it's a priority. And so what happens then in those level 10 meetings is that you have the most important information about your company summarized in the top 15 minutes of a meeting. You know, you review your key metrics, all your priorities, any headlines your employees and customers have, what's good, bad, needs to be celebrated or dealt with. You make a list, and then you spend at least an hour of that meeting solving those issues together using a very specific decision-making methodology that's easy to teach, that surfaces the priorities. And once teams really get used to that, what used to be super challenging conversations that you put off, one of my clients said, now it's just Tuesday. Like, it's just, you can solve hard things together.
Yeah.
And so putting those things, the EOS foundational tools that give you that traction together, that give you that, your team, the opportunity to actually contribute and make a difference and solve problems together, that gives you that early lift in the EOS journey.
One of the, I guess, key tenets within Traction is kind of visibility and transparency, and dashboarding, I think, is a big part of it. I mean, is that something that you teach? Is that a tool that you're like, download this spreadsheet template and this is how you can get full visibility into all the L10s and into people's progress on rocks and things like that? Or is that, like, how does that kind of click with agencies?
So we teach the very basics. And coming from a software background, what I'm very careful of is I want to teach methodology first. And then whatever software, or some of my clients actually just do it on good old pen and paper, even though they're digital agencies.
Interesting.
I want to teach methodology first so that you understand the methodology before you choose the tool to implement it in a more effective format. Because if you choose tool before you understand the methodology, each tool comes with its own methodology that can bias it.
Yeah.
So for a scorecard, what we want at the leadership team level, what we teach is, what are the 5 to 15 numbers that you need to watch on a weekly basis, not monthly, not quarterly, not annually, that are predictors of your company's health. Sometimes they're tied to annual goals or quarterly priorities, but most often they're just like the very basic fundamentals of your business. Are you doing sales? What's happening with marketing? What's happening with operations? Are there HR? And when you are challenged to turn agency metrics into weekly numbers that you watch, it is like a real deep dive into what are we doing on a weekly basis that actually matters, and to summarize that into 5 to 15 things. And then in EOS, another key thing that we do that's different from metrics, or that people don't go all the way through, that, like, you can take this, like, please steal this from EOS, even if you're not using it, is that every number that is considered a critical metric has an owner. So if I'm in charge of operations and I'm in charge of project quality and success, any metrics on there, as the person in the operation seat, my name is on the scorecard that monitors that metric, and I'm in charge of driving that metric. The sales, whoever's ahead of sales and marketing, they have their name right next to the metric. They're driving it. They're responsible for innovating, pushing it, keeping it on track. But the spirit of the thing is not to micromanage, but to say, like, hey, here's the things that predict our company health. And if something's going wrong, I have the support of my entire leadership team to help figure this out. So if something's on track, I'm not going, oh man, Steve's going to fire me because I missed this metric. It's Tuesday. I get to have Steve's help figuring this out.
Yeah.
I don't have to disrupt you during your week. I know the L10s, I know our level 10 meetings coming up, and I know it's going to be an issue. And I know you and the rest of our team is going to help me get to the root of it, figure out a solve, figure how we can contribute. And so the mindset changes significantly to, I'm alone in driving sales, to I'm accountable for driving sales. I have the backing of my team, the organization, there's transparency into it. And so people that value that real team spirit with individual accountability, it thrives. But it takes a while to get, like, to really figure out what those activities are. Usually probably at least 2 quarters using that type of scorecard system to really see if the scorecard is meaningful. And then we have ways of evaluating and testing if the numbers are real. So on the metric side, that's what we do. Just go with high level numbers activities on a weekly basis that predicts health. And then we track other things, measurables on a quarterly and annual basis, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah. To me, and you said a word earlier that I think just kind of resonates in what you just kind of brought forward again. You mentioned how you try and have these vulnerable conversations compassionately. And I think that also kind of puts a nice bow on what you just mentioned about, so I own sales and marketing. Shoot, I'm not hitting my numbers. Should I start looking for a new job? No, like my team is going to support me. And if I didn't have the number of touch points I'm supposed to have, like, what do we do to, what can I clear out of your way to help you have success in what your rocks are, what your metrics are? And that visibility in a scorecard just brings it to the forefront. So people know, all right, we're on target, red, yellow, green, like we're crushing it this week. I don't know if it's a standard thing, but when I was doing it, we had, extra green or whatever the heck they called it. And so it was like, if you were far exceeding your numbers, you could say, yeah, we're extra green or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember, but there's a lot of value in, like you said, just building the culture, nailing down the core values and understanding that we're all, one phrase I loved and I still use a lot, we're all, rowing in the same direction. And like, the music is just all flowing beautifully. And so, I've had nothing but great experience with it. And like I said, I use some of the principles and tools from, I'm constantly using the Stephen Covey model of rocks, pebbles, and sand in my groups and in my coaching as well. And I think there's nothing but value in integrating something like EOS or EOS specifically. So yeah, big fan of it. I appreciate you kind of breaking that down for how an agency can benefit from it in all ways. So just want to jump real quick to a couple of non-EOS related rapid fire questions for you, just to keep you throw you on your toes. So what's a new hobby that you maybe you yourself, you and your family have been into recently?
It's a what's old is new again, and that's getting back into Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role playing.
Oh, cool.
I played it in junior high school, and college, and we've done it a couple times as a family, and my kids really love it, and I am making a effort to make that a consistent family activity, bringing that kind of back into the forefront again, because it's real time with each other, and we love the experience together. And the best, most well-received business talk I ever gave was everything I needed to learn about leadership I learned from Dungeons and Dragons.
That's amazing.
To this day, I've never done anything more popular. I should probably do a new version of that.
Yeah, you got to blow the dust off of that.
But we have a blast with it. Yeah.
That's amazing. What about what's something in again, business or personal, what's something that you're binging the heck out of and can't get enough of, whether it's a show or a podcast or an audiobook or something like that?
Right now, my wife and I are really loving Diablo 4. We play together couch co-op on the PS5.
Okay.
I grew up as a video gamer. I'm not a gamer capital G, but it's something that we've always enjoyed throughout our relationship. And we had to take a huge break when we had kids. And now all our kids are old enough to enjoy those things with us or alongside with us. So currently, I think it's only been out like a couple months, but we enjoy sitting down in the evenings, and we do that right now instead. Like, we also watch shows and stuff, but all that's taken a back seat to kicking butt and taking names in Diablo 4 together. We're having a blast with that as a couple.
That's so cool. As long as you have an activity that kind of gives you competitive edge on each other and just something fun to do, I think that's amazing. Yeah, it's funny. I have friends who are going to, their kids are going to college for gaming, and they're on the intercollegiate gaming teams, and they get scholarships. And like when we were growing up, it was like, turn off the screens and go outside. And now the value of that is, I'm sure there's still got to be a balance. And I love that you're bringing in the non-digital games to the kids. But yeah, it's amazing. That's an actual thing. What about a tool or something that you've recently integrated to your life, again, business or professional, physical or digital, that you're like, how did I operate as a human being without this tool previously?
It's going to sound maybe too simple, but it's just writing, writing for my own sake.
Nice.
I think coming from early blogging land, like I remember a time before WordPress. So being involved in the software and culture of early blogging and then being in content management for 25 years, writing used to be something that was really therapeutic for me. And then it became a job. Then it became an integral part. Like, I was never a paid writer, but the idea of generating content and being strategic about it was so tied to professional success. And now as a coach, what I'm having to learn is that being a coach, the business of coaching is really different from the business of consulting or being a full-time employee, where I need a coach. So I hire my own coach, and I have to take my own introspection seriously. And it's what my family needs, and it's what I need, just the time to set aside and figure out, like, why is my brain this way, or what am I noodling on, or why did I enjoy this, or why did I hate this? And just taking the burden of having it have something I have to do versus something I get to do has been amazing.
Love that.
So I'm writing for the sake of writing.
Yeah.
99% of it is never going to see the light of day. I'm not writing with the intent to publish or to have a newsletter or have a following. And like, all those things are important professional things I'll need for the business. But this type of writing is, I have a journal, I have a pen, and it's for me.
Love it.
And that's been like, simple and amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of it. Fully support that. Well, Leslie, I'm super grateful for your time. Thank you very much for joining me today and kind of sharing a 30,000 foot level introduction to EOS. If people want to learn more about EOS, we'll drop your website into the webpage below, and they can also pick up a copy of Traction and start learning about it. It's a really great tool. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. And just want to say, I'm a huge fan of the work I run across your clients in the Bureau. Everyone says such amazing things about you, and I'm so thankful for anyone else that has dedicated their professional life to just making professional lives better, because it makes such a difference. Like, the impact that we can have is just so fulfilling. And so I'm thankful to be a part of this with you.
Ah, man, that means the world to me.
Thanks again for tuning in to Byte-Sized Agency Briefs. As always, if you found value in this episode, chances are someone else will too, so please share it with your network. Also, if you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love, drop me a note. Let's get them on. Finally, find someone to hug today.